All right. We are here with the Mystical Woo Academy and Laughing Goddess 888. We have Trina that is going to be sharing with us about the placebo effect and how it is the key to our healing. And
Yes.
I'm super excited to hear and learn all about what Trina is going to be sharing with us tonight. So, Trina, I'm going to turn the time over to you and let you share a little bit about yourself and just for the recording, and then
Yep.
go ahead and jump in. Thank you.
Okay, great. I haven't been telling my story the last few classes because all of you have heard it, but it's very relevant. And I'll walk through how the placebo effect actually affected my journey. When everything started for me, I was at my biggest, I was 385, but at the time I was about 340 pounds. I was in a wheelchair if I had to go more than about a block. Um, and a block was tough. I had a walker, multiple sclerosis, polycystic ovarian syndrome, trigeminal neuralgia. I mean, there was just a huge list, but multiple sclerosis was the most debilitating of them. I was in a relationship that was unhappy. At the time, I characterized it as abusive. In retrospect, and through my own healing, I realized I was a victim in his own private war against himself. And I had my own responsibility in it too. I had no ability and knowledge on how to set boundaries or expectations or even clearly speak what it is that I wanted. All things, by the way, that I'm now working on again. Not that my relationship in this case is bad, but I'm still really bad at setting boundaries, and the universe is forcing him to push them. And he's aware of this because he's feeling it and not deliberately doing it, but it's happening, which then gets egos into play and everything. So I can learn how to set boundaries, and I'm aware. But that's part of why it's been so tough for recently. Now what happened was I ended up having my doctor tell me, if you get COVID, you're probably going to end up in the hospital. You're on 28 medications, including immunosuppressants. Just stay in, don't catch it. And for the first time in about 10 years, I was able to actually say to myself, wow, I don't want to die. And I had been a very outgoing person, very social as a teenager. So really what I had turned into was a shell of who I used to be. I was on autopilot most of the time, which my intentional living class goes into consciously making an effort to live. And a big part of that conscious effort was the healthy, whole food, vegan diet. But the spiritual was the biggest aspect, being able to work on my shadows through things. Now, how the placebo effect works, everything comes down to permission slips when it comes to spirituality. What do you need to believe? And science has backed this up and termed it the placebo effect. What the placebo effect is, for those who don't know, is when they do a medicine trial study, they have to do it as what's called a double blind study, because there are people that will take the sugar pill, the dummy pill that doesn't have any of the medicine in it, and they will cure literally anything because they believe that they are taking the medicine that cures it. This is so proven by science that they had to specially develop a way to not have it skew their numbers. But it's also how all faith healing, all modalities, everything work at their core. Now, that doesn't mean some modalities are not more effective than others for particular people, because it resonates with you. And if it resonates with you, it's a good permission slip for you. Um, Using the intuitive versus integrator part, on the intuitive side, I needed my guides. I needed to believe that something bigger and further out than me was guiding me. And they were my permission slip. They brought me the messages from my higher self that I needed in order to heal myself. And when I say heal myself, I'm 180 pounds lighter. I'm healthier than I was as a teenager. My MS is completely cured. The lesions in my brain and spine, because I had some in my spine as well, are gone. My neurologist did my MRI and went, you don't have multiple sclerosis. And yet, they had me on these disease modifying medications and stuff because they were positive I did. I had lesions and they're gone. So anything can be cured by making use of the placebo effect. And the way that you make use of it is to learn to believe in it. Again, do the science research and look, people heal themselves. When you hear stories of faith healing, it's because they believed. And anything can cure from it. Anything can be. I believe that, structural abnormalities. I had a hernia. My hernia is gone, and I had it for 15 years since I was pregnant with my youngest. It's healed. Bone spurs. Now, those can go into spontaneous remission, but they did so in 3 weeks between two scans. So, the way, again, I believe in the placebo effect. I usually don't call it that. I call it miracles because to us, that's how it seems. And that's so much more affirming for me. But technically, for those science minded, that's what it is. And you can trigger it by finding what speaks to you, what resonates with you. You still have the important paths of shadow work, because if you don't have the shadow work, you're not going to believe in yourself enough to believe that you can heal yourself. And then you have to work on your boundaries and stuff so you don't make more shadows. And so you develop your sense of self-worth, because a big key on it is not just wanting to heal, but deciding you're worthy of healing and you deserve it. And I'll tell you, for me, that was the hardest part of the journey. It wasn't wanting to. I was finally in a relationship with somebody that made me happy. I finally felt appreciated and valued, which is kind of tough right now. Again, I'm going through a thing. Um, but finding that and really believing in myself for the first time in a very long time brought me to the point where I had the desire to heal, because I knew that my life expectancy was probably less than a year at that point. I occasionally choked on my food, which is a sign of the beginning of the end when you have MS. I wasn't a real mom to my kids. They loved it because I was very sheltering and very protective and very codependent. And in the process of that, I didn't give them the skills they need to be adults. And so I'm working on remedying some of that now. But all of these things that I'm able to work on, release, and free myself from brings me to the point that more and more can heal because I believe. But you have to build steps there. If you had told me a year ago, and this was well after awakening and after I healed the MS, but if you had told me that we were immortal and that when we die, we don't die, we die in the timeline of the people we've left, but we step into a new timeline because this is our ascension and we are going to experience it all the way to the end. I do know that now. I had a situation where we were in the car and Pete saw a car coming way too fast up the side street at the same time that I saw it literally in front of us. And then at the same time, both of us saw it next to us instead of in front of us. I know that was a point in which our timeline was shifting out in order to evolve into the next. These things have affirmed to me that we are immortal. I mean, science tells us, energy cannot be created or destroyed. It only changes form. And we are energy. I mean, even science shows we're energy, electromagnetic fields, our consciousness is energy. It's how they can measure, when there's activity still going on and that the person is still there within the vessel. And so because we are energy, we can't ever be destroyed. We will just change form. A year ago, I wouldn't have believed you. I probably would have nodded and went, that's a great idea. But I didn't have anything in my life that showed me it was true. And as I said, and this was after my miraculous healing, but immortal, I wasn't ready for that. And so just like me getting to that place, you have to get to the place of understanding how the placebo effect is able to heal you. And it works in small ways. Find the modalities that resonate with you. Reiki, sound bowls, plant medicine. I've tried all of them, to find the ones that resonated with me. I'm actually shifting into less plant medicines now and leaving a large part of that behind because like sound healing is a huge part, but really it's this inner work. I do want to give a shout out, for lack of a better word. But I finally stepped into being ready to where I'm reading a book called Course in Miracles. If you haven't read it, I don't recommend you start there if you're just starting on the spiritual path, because I would not have been ready until now. Because it's kind of written like Shakespeare. Very like college level material stuff, the way things are worded. And so I have to take it in sections. But it's a big part of probably why right now is so tough. And because I'm bringing out Course in Miracles is basically a guide in how to free yourself from your ego and step by step method how to free yourself. I don't have the same thing for the placebo effect because your miracles may vary. It is different for every person what you can believe in and what's going to resonate with you to bring you the healing. For most people, it starts outside of yourself. Very few of us are in a healed enough state to believe that we are our own healer. We are, but we need that permission slip to believe in someone else when we can't believe in ourselves yet. And so we do. And by putting that belief in someone else is how so many of the healers are able to heal, because they are able to help you believe in yourself, believe in your ability to heal, and very often find permission slips. You're having a headache. Here's this crystal that is great for headaches. Well, if this is someone whose expertise in crystals you trust, there is a much better than average chance that that crystal is going to help your headache because you trust the source and you believe in it. And I have seen this work many times with many different people. My own, as I said, personal one was channeling the dimensional beings and getting the messages from them. As I've gone through integration, many of my guides have become a everyday part of my life, not even as separate beings. I just pull on their talents, for lack of a better word, as I need. An example of that is one of my guides is David. He's actually my only male guide, Palladian. He cooks. I am an okay cook. It's nothing to write home about, but it's decent comfort food. I become a gourmet chef when I was channeling him. Now I can pull on that without actually having to bring him completely full. And what I mean is you integrate these parts of yourself, because I'm now to the point of learning that my guides are just facets of my higher self, other experiences my higher self has had that I can now pull on in this incarnation. But again, it brings up a lot of new things for me that I have to work on, including being egoic. I know this is going to wander some from the placebo effect. Congratulations, you guys are now my therapy as well. But part of what has happened, and Course in Miracles is helping, Pete's pointed this out really well, not always as calmly as I would, and that's part of the struggle. What I have realized is masculine starts with a much bigger struggle when it comes to ego, because society tells them to take care of all the 3D things, figure everything out. And so their ego struggles a bit more than the feminine side usually does with it, because we're used to giving up of ourselves for other people. Our struggle with the ego is the victim paradigm, how unfair things are to us. And I am struggling and working through that. But what happened is he has made huge leaps very recently in his own growth. And I was still projecting the older, very critical him on it. And what really sticks out is now my ego is the problem, because I'm falling into the victim and unfairness paradigm, because where he would freak out at something a couple weeks ago, he's now past that. And then when I'm freaking out, he's getting upset, and I'm going, well, that's unfair. But guess what? Fairness doesn't matter. I teach this all the time. Right and wrong doesn't matter. I just need to do me. But my ego is, because of feeling the unfairness and everything, really is the problem, is on my side and my ego. Because if I didn't care, it would just die. But when I react egoically to anything I perceive as an attack, and I say perceive because I know that he's not trying to attack either. It comes across that way sometimes, but he is just trying to help me grow and heal as well. Okay, so now that we had my therapy session, I got that out. Back to the placebo effect. This can really change your life. but it takes making steps. Start with small steps you believe in. Say your issue is health or weight, like mine was. Mine was both. What is a step I could make? Let's clean up my diet. I had tried every diet I thought under the sun. I'd even done vegan before, you know, but I wasn't really ready to heal. I didn't believe in myself. And once I did, and I had someone that believed in me, because in the beginning, I had to borrow his belief in me to believe in myself. And then my codependency, which I know I talk about the codependency a lot, it's because it was a big struggle of mine and one I'm still working through. But the codependency was actually a benefit in the beginning because it helped us really bond together to make this work. A huge shift in how we ate. And neither of us wanted to cheat on it because we didn't want to disappoint the other. So each other and being code helped us hold each other accountable, not in a, ooh, I saw you eat that, but in a self-policing, well, I don't want to eat that because I don't want him to think I'm, not committed to this. And so by doing that, it allowed us to shift into at least the healthier mindset of clean up the diet. That was the start. Then the next, move around. Well, I was close to, 400 pounds at my biggest. I managed to figure out that yoga can be done by anybody. I mean, you can be a paraplegic and there is yoga that is made to help you still get the benefits of yoga. And so that's where I started. But find those little permission slips that allow you to move into the direction you want to go and heal. But you don't, it's also, and we often tend to do this, get really excited, we're going to get healthy, and then we overdo it. And we go to the gym and we work out for an hour and a half with weights that we are totally not ready for. And then we lay in bed for 3 to 4 days going, oh my God, I can't move. Why did I do that? So also, as you're moving towards the health, or again, whatever your goal is, set reasonable goals that you will be able to stick to for long term. Like my goal right now is yoga 5 mornings a week, because I know I will not commit to every morning. And I like having those 2 days as floating days. So it's the day I wake up and I go, yeah, fuck this, I'm not doing it. I have that ability. You need that to really succeed. And the only reason is not that you're not capable. We're all capable, but we have limits when we change of how fast we can often pivot and develop new habits. Now, something important to that is a new habit. They say scientifically at least takes 3 weeks, 21 days, and that new habit will be part of your routine if you have stuck with it. So that's important for getting the placebo effect to help you, is stick to a routine, do it for 3 weeks, see how you feel, and consciously don't just give up. "Oh, I'm tired, I don't feel like it," and let it fade away. If you decide that you don't want to show up for yourself in this manner, then just do the 3 weeks and go, you know what? I'm not getting the benefit I want. It's not worth the effort to me. But if you're going to quit, own it. Consciously make the decision and say, you know what? I don't think this is the way I want to do it because it's not working for me. And that's okay. No judgment. But how often do we do something and we reach too far and it's a struggle and we instantly drop it and just say, I reached too far, instead of looking back and reevaluate and say, maybe I need a smaller step. It's Linda, much like what you were talking the other day on our class, where I was saying, if you can get a half hour for yourself, and you said 5 minutes. Yes, whatever the steps are. And we often do reach higher because we're excited about our potential. But, 10 minutes of yoga 5 days a week is better than 3 hours of yoga once a week. You would think more time, but it doesn't work that way. It's the consistency of showing up for yourself that makes the difference. Then the next thing I would recommend, work on your own shadows. Again, learn to live intentionally, but find your permission slips. Sometimes it's a vitamin. That sounds silly, but we came from a pharmaceutical paradigm. In our whole life, we've been told, take this pill, it'll cure this. Take this pill, it'll cure that. And I'm saying take medicine. If you are still in the medical paradigm and you need medicine, by all means, keep taking it, because you have to until you don't. Until your belief system is at a point where you don't need the medications anymore, you still need to take them. Because of this pharmaceutical paradigm, though, certain things like plant medicine and vitamins and things like that are really good, easy permission slips for us to start with. Because, of course, a natural plant is better than medication. But again, because we have a pharmaceutical paradigm, your placebo effect is a lot more likely to be triggered by something you take that is going to cure or heal you. So that's a good place to start. Meditation. Find out where you really are on it too, because I can't tell you the number of things I thought I wanted to get rid of. And when I really looked at them, I wanted them to change form. I didn't like how they were happening, but I didn't want them gone. That was a baby with the bathwater kind of thing, is, this isn't serving me, cast it out, without realizing part of it was serving me. I just needed to redefine what it was and its place in my life. And that's a message for me too with the stuff I'm working on. So I love how things come out, and I'm sure I will read this or listen to this later. But again, the hardest part with teaching the placebo effect is it's unique for every single one of you. Touch is very big for me. So things like massage help me heal because I know and can feel the effect they have on my body. There are other people who are touch sensitive in a way that would be horrendous to them and it wouldn't work. My son he cringes with one of the particular sound bowls. My theory is there's probably a chakra blockage or something, and Asperger's. I know that he has, vagal nerve tone, startle stuff that goes along with that. But, sound bowls would be a horrible healing modality for him because periodically he would tense up and cringe. So we all have, and sound bowls are huge for me. I love the way they make me feel. My cells start communicating better. It's absolutely beautiful. So again, the difficulty in teaching it is I don't know what's going to work for you, but the ways to find it is try everything that makes your little heart sing. If it is appealing to you, give it a try. See how it makes you feel. Because when you feel it in your heart and you feel better, that's self-affirming, and you found a modality that will help trigger your placebo effect and heal you. Now, that for me is the more intuitive. The more integrator side does the same thing, except usually using a more scientific basis behind the placebo effect. This is what and I was going to have Pete here for the class to explain this part of it. But as I said, since we're going through stuff, this was better. But intellectually going through realizing that our brain creates our reality. If we look at quantum physics, what we see doesn't even exist until we see it. Matter is all over the place, and it only becomes whatever it is in front of us when we see it. And that's all scientific stuff. Nobel Prize was recently given to 3 physicists that prove the whole spooky, what do they call it? Spooky action that Einstein described in quantum entanglement. And that has to do with all of this. With the scientific basis, for many people, is needed to trigger the placebo effect because we need the facts on why this works. And it works because we create our reality, which is proven in science. And then if we believe that something will have a particular effect, we will perceive that effect as happening. That includes healing yourself. And it looks like magic because other people say it. No one else is looking at me and seeing me at 340 pounds anymore either. But this is a miracle because it literally melted off. It didn't feel like it, as I was in the moments, especially when I'd have, a pause for a couple months where nothing else was, moving. But it really did. I lost the first 140 pounds of it in a year. well, a year and a half, we'll say a year and a half. And it really was just most weeks, something was coming off, everything was changing, but it's because I was doing the work. As I said in the beginning, just moving towards the effect I want. But use the placebo effect to your advantage in everything, not just health. If you believe it, you can make it real. This works with abundance, which is a big one for a lot of us, particularly because, again, feeling worthy and feeling deserving is hard with abundance. It also comes down to the worthy. And if you weren't raised in a situation with memes, feeling worthy is really difficult. And then this was a big one for me, not demonizing people who were better off than I was. If I think that money corrupts and that the rich are all corrupt and vile and bad people and manipulating our society for all of these ills, then I'm telling the universe I don't want money because I don't want to be a bad person. So again, placebo effect can work in that too, because if you believe you are abundant, you will become abundant. We have seen that actually happen where we have hit like the wall and then the road rises up to meet us and we're able to keep going and teaching and traveling and doing the things we are. But it's because we believed in it and the rubber hit the road and it became time that we had to really believe or not. And the road again rose up to meet us. The same thing has happened with health. I believe this can affect everything. Something that connects to the placebo effect, but is not directly it, but I've recently had a lot of work with myself. So I want to bring up for you guys to chew on. We are the God. I prefer warden, caretaker of what, 3 trillion cell citizens that are our body. I have reached the point where I believe that my cells someday will be humans where I am when I have ascended up, because it's all fractal. I don't want to confuse you and jump too far ahead, but everything, if you've seen a fractal pattern, what we perceive as God is one step up from us. And it keeps going because with fractal, it's infinitely down and infinitely up. But I can only perceive the one above and the one below. I've tried to reach further and my brain wants to explode. But the better we get at listening to our cell citizens, in fact, I should do that right now. I'm thirsty. So my cell citizens are telling me, drink some water. This is what they need. And the better I get at communicating to God or my creator or universe is usually what I use. Sorry, got to get more comfortable. That the better I get at listening to my cell citizens, the better God listens to me. The better I get at telling the universe what it is I want. Better at getting clarity, better at speaking my truth cleanly. The better my cell citizens are telling me what they want. So it all works in synergy with each other. And I know that's kind of a big concept, but I think it relates very well to the placebo effect in how we can affect ourselves. We can tell our cell citizens, you are all chaotic and I am frazzled all the time. Well, what helps stop me from being frazzled? Why am I frazzled? Because my cell citizens are telling me that I'm way overstimulating myself. How can I affect overstimulating myself? Maybe some less caffeine. That's one for me. I've actually cut my coffee out completely at the moment, but I'm hoping if you love something, set it free, it'll come back. That's my current hope with coffee, but I have currently set it free. Because again, if you're feeling that anxiety, how do you listen to that? That's your cell citizens telling you they're overstimulated, they're on edge. So caffeine, maybe taking naps or restful periods, listening to music, meditating, whatever helps calm that in yourself is you answering those cell citizens that are saying, I'm struggling in this situation. And we are doing the same to the universe. I'm struggling. And so I know that the universe knows that because I'm sending the signals and I should drink. Well, the universe will send me a drink when needed. And this is part of the process I'm going through. It is, Phoenix said this actually when I logged in and said I've had a rough couple months going through a lot of shadow work. The last couple weeks in particular have been very, very brutal. Um, but again, this may sound terrible to say. It's been brutal. I've been crying almost nonstop. Like, I mean, I'm laying here and just bursting into tears. Everything's changing. Change is good. And I have to remember that. It's just hard. Usually we change away from bad things. Bad things. This is things are good and we're still changing because it has to be part of the growth and the evolution. But it's hard to change away from something that, by all accounts, is actually fantastic. But it has to happen. So in the process of doing that, I've been working through my own things, and the self-citizen part has been a huge part of the path of what I'm doing now to further my self-healing. What I had in the first couple months was miraculous, but it really hasn't continued when I stopped working on my inner work as much and started more teaching outward, traveling to expos in order to teach everyone else. We were focusing on healing the world. I stopped focusing on healing myself. And it turns out you don't really backslide, but you don't grow anymore either if you're not putting the horsepower behind the growth. And so I am doing that again and working towards that. Back to the, I like to make sure I try to stay on topic, but back to the placebo effect is figure your goal. What is it you want to trigger the placebo effect to do? And then once you know, really look at it, take everyone else out of the picture, because you're also not going to want to do this just to make someone else happy, because it doesn't work that way either. It has to be something you truly want. And then you have to know it's achievable. And that stage could take a while. Do your research into what you're doing, do your shadow work so you can start to believe in yourself. Because I can't tell you how many of my diets were probably sabotaged by the fact that I really want to, but I don't think I can really do it. I'll try. Try is probably the biggest red flag that you don't believe. Because if you're trying, you already have accepted the fact that you're going to fail. Doesn't mean you necessarily failed. You still might succeed, but you're a lot more likely to fail because you've made that one of the choices. I didn't quit smoking until every time I tried to quit, it didn't stick. But I've now quit for 20 plus years, 25 years since I quit smoking. But it was because I finally didn't say try. I finally did. I mean, I also had an ultimatum given, and that was a whole other, and that goes with the codependency. I needed pushes that were rough and I didn't consider a good thing. As I said, it's part of what I have to learn now is, ironically, to listen less and stay true to myself more is actually what will fix my whole situation. And I'm working on it because honestly, despite teaching a lesson on boundaries, I'm not good at setting boundaries. I'm not. I'm working towards it. It's why I teach it. I know the steps my guide have told me, and I'm great at seeing in someone else and helping show them. But it is a place that I struggle and I'm working on. But I am proud of myself. I set like my first real boundary, I think, today in my relationship. And it was something he would do anyway, really. But it was just this is how I will react if that happens. Big for me, baby steps, right? As we work through for the healing. But you have to go through all of the parts of your healing to get your full you, to remember who you are. Because I don't even know who I am. I have been working at this like nonstop for a year and a half. I thought I was incredibly full of myself. Here's enter the ego part that I'm working at disentangling from. Is I was like, I feel great. I'm healed of all these things. I'm helping people. I mean, I talk to people all the time and they have that beautiful shadow work, burst into tears. I know I help them. I feel good, right? What I realized is maybe I've reacquired 30% of who I am. Because when I really think about it, I've never been myself. As a kid, I wore masks because, I needed to be whoever that person responded to the best. And I got really good at playing the mask game and charming people, and everybody loves me. Here's the problem. It's not me. I don't actually know who I am at its core. So I'm working on that, which is probably a big part of that problem, is I don't know who I am, not fully. And I'm working at remembering that. But here's the thing, it's true for all of us. The us that's sitting here in our physical forms are not even close to the splendor that is us. We really are completely, fully healed magical beings that are remembering. I saw it worded that we are gods with amnesia. It's true. It really is. We're remembering. Now, the reason I don't tend to use God for the universe or creator is because I tend to use gods in the larger sense, but still small us way. We are becoming the gods of our own universes because we control our perception, what comes in. Therefore, we're making what we see. Um, that was one of the humility lessons, actually. And I don't usually call them humility lessons, I guess, because I had an inferiority complex for so long that it doesn't feel humbling. It feels like, oh, someone else doesn't believe in me. Okay. So it hits differently. But one of the ones I had recently was realizing that I thought I was always being judged and attacked. Judged, probably, yes, because that is something he does struggle with. But the attacking part of it was totally my perception of seeing any suggestions or criticisms as attacks. And we do that. What is coming into us goes through our lens. And so if you expect your mother-in-law to be critical and she goes, oh, nice dress, she really could have meant she thought it was a nice dress, but how are we going to perceive it if we already think she's critical? We're going to think that she's saying, oh, yeah, that's a nice dress, and being sarcastic. Here's the thing, she very likely might not have been, but we don't know if we keep putting the past on them. And again, we put the past on ourselves. This is something that has to do with the placebo effect. Yay, I actually wandered back to the topic. I'm proud of me. What happens with the placebo effect is as we don't believe in ourselves, it stops. We can't heal ourselves when the belief isn't there. And if we're taking in other people's projections, we stop believing in ourselves. I mean, how many people were getting great results from a new age modality of some sort? Say, even use something like chiropractic that is now so mainstream and accepted for the most part anyway. How many people stop going despite getting benefit because other people go, oh yeah, that stuff's just a bunch of quackery. Don't go to Reiki. It's woo woo. They're just waving their hands over you and charging you money. Even if you're feeling the results, if you are prone to codependency, like as one of my struggles, you will be likely to just drop it and go, you know what, maybe I didn't really feel what I thought I did, because then you take the projection in from the person who is doubting on you. And again, part of the lesson I'm working through, but that will stop the placebo effect cold, because once you don't believe anymore, that's what makes it work, is faith and belief. I was right up there laughing with everybody else at the faith healers and the, hallelujah, get up out of the wheelchair and start dancing. I thought it was a joke. It was not a joke. I felt bad for the people who believed and I thought were being fleeced by people that were just putting on a show. I thought the people in the wheelchair were plants. Not that I didn't believe miraculous healing was possible. I just didn't have much faith in humanity and figured that they were just scamming each other. The placebo effect has proven to me that not only can it does work. And now I realize, like, these, healing tent revivals and things where people are cured are triggering that placebo effect. Now, we don't necessarily have to go through like getting bit by a poisonous snake or whatever their things are that they do for that, unless your particular permission slip needs to be that dramatic. But it can be as simple as, I know someone who lost 180 pounds following this diet. If they can do it, so can I. and just going, so can I. And truly believing in that, that's the start to get it to work. And then you just keep making achievable steps. And I have to emphasize the achievable because, again, we get excited full of beans and then we give ourselves goals that we can't meet to hit our steps on the way. You're still going to meet the big goal because I'm a big believer. I saw it worded beautifully that said, the biggest shame is not that man reaches too far and misses his goal. The shame is when man reaches too little and achieves it. So by all means, reach as high as you can, but make your incremental steps to get there, things that you will stick to, things that you can achieve. And when you do have a bad day and you don't get it, forgive yourself and start again the next day. Because you really have to just say, fuck it, plot twist, and change. It was something that came up actually in one of my recent classes that I think is applicable here is we're always looking back for how much blame can we assign where. Now, some of that mechanism comes from the self-analysis. What will I want to do differently next time? That's the only place where looking back and evaluating the past has any merit is, if this didn't work out the way I wanted, what would I do different next time? How do I change it? But otherwise, going back and like beating ourselves up for making, again, is counterproductive because the idea is you want to build your self-value, your self-worth. Because if you don't, you're not going to stick to building your self-care because we don't put effort into something we don't care about. You know, is if you're not bathing and you're not taking care of yourself because you're in a depressive mode, then that is the more extreme example of how this works. If you're really loving yourself, you're going to be going to the salon, the massage parlor, you know what I mean though, but I just realized how bad that sounds. But you're going to go enjoy life because you feel good. And that is self-care. Again, the depressive side where you're not even bathing or doing basic is the extreme example of not taking care of yourself. Most of us are somewhere in the middle in the gray, but it is so important that in that gray area, we find a balance where we are self-affirming of who we are, of what makes us happy. And if you are in a space where you're not able to take care of yourself, start there. Before you even start worrying about triggering the placebo effect, start to gain a sense of self, make yourself a priority. I saw something that said, you know, if someone's not communicating with you, it's not that they don't have time, it's that you're not a priority. Now, I want to put that people fall in and out of each other's life. No one is under any obligation to stay in touch or not, because I do believe that the way friendships evolve to as you ascend further is you may go out of each other's life for 10 years and then end up in each other's orbit. And ideally, without egos in the way, it just becomes a great, how to see you, let's catch up, and everything's wonderful. It's the feeling of a perceived obligation and then guilt that I haven't called, or being upset at someone else because they don't care enough to, that part, none of it really matters. What matters is the in the moments. But by having those connections with people, we grow our own sense of self, but it can't replace our inner sense of self. And what happens is all of us, I shouldn't say all of us, I'm sure there's somebody who doesn't, but most of us have a pit inside of us where we're not loving ourselves enough. And as we work on the self-care and the healing, that pit gets smaller, but we try to fill it in with validation from everyone else. We want everyone else to let us know that it's okay, that we made the right choice, that our perception is correct. I got news for you, and this has been a huge thing for me that was like a bomb when I fully really internalized it. We're all right. Our perspective is right always to us. And that means even people that I have, demonized as villains, they're doing the best they can with what they believe, their knowledge. Nobody is ever going, I'm going to be a dick today. and I'm going to deliberately just destroy everything I touch. We don't do that, but we cast the blame on the people who do, act as if that's what they thought. But it's just because our perspectives are so different. And being able to realize that multiple people can be right with conflicting opinions at the same time was a very hard thing for me to wrap my brain around. But it is how we perceive them differently. And, you know, two people, one saying it's blue, one saying it's red, you're both right. Because that color might be red to you and blue to you. It doesn't matter what you call it. Move on. We don't need to argue the semantics over whose word was right or not, but we do. And that's all egoic process. But in the process of doing that, again, as we have to fight to get external validation, we lose our sense of our real self, because in order to get validated, we're not true to ourselves. We make everybody else happy, but we're not happy. And in the process, we just can't really heal until you can become self-focused. And in order to become self-focused, as I said, start with self-care, show up for yourself. You know, what I was saying about the phone call thing is somebody, if you're a priority, you'll get that text message every morning because you're a priority. Here's the thing, we're not priorities to ourselves. I wasn't a vast majority of the time. Now, I have realized it seems that the masculine side tends to make themselves more of a priority than we do. So I'm not saying that masculine doesn't have struggles with that, but it does seem much more intense on the feminine side, to not really have a sense of self, to not worry about taking care of ourselves because other people need us or are demanding our attention or whatever. Here's the thing, it doesn't matter what they're demanding. And this is a lesson for me too. We can say tough. That's not working for me. But that's hard. And that's where these boundaries and stuff come in. But until you heal that sense of self, at least some, as I said, I still have hole in my sense of self that I'm working on. Because until I get that other 70% of figuring out who I am, that's still empty. But I'm doing my best to fill it with self-care so that I need external validation less. And the external validation, again, makes the placebo effect less effective. It can work to a point, but eventually you start to realize that it's you doing the healing and not the other people. And most healers know they're not the ones doing it either, but whether they tell you that or not depends on whether they think you're ready to trigger your own healing or not, or whether you still need them as a permission slip. But eventually, when you start to realize that it's all self-work and healing, I still go to other people, mind you, because I do like the effects of the modalities, because I know they're my permission slip. But it's not, it stops working until your sense of self gets now to where I am now. In fact, probably that's a better thing of it, is when I was 340 pounds, my sense of self had a really high amount of room it could grow. But now my sense of self is very much in line with where I'm at and perceive physically. So it's harder for me to reach higher still at this point with the self-belief until I grow it more, which is why I've been going through this rough patch of everything is so I can grow. Well, now that I've rattled on for almost an hour, I guess I should open it up for questions. Anybody have any questions?
I'm just scanning the
Oh,
chat and I
yeah,
think the comments,
yep,
but I'm
let me
not
look.
seeing any specific questions.
As I said, I'm on a new computer, so let me see if I can open that. Okay, I got it.
So I'm just going to go back real quick because I mentioned the
Sure.
2190. So just if this is something that I've used for a really long time, because yes, 21 days
Right,
is how long they say, like 3 weeks, that 21 days is
right.
how long it takes to
Make a
create
habit.
it.
Yeah.
But the 90 days is
Okay.
where you're actually Like if you can make it the 21 days, it's part of a habit, but it doesn't really become a true life part of your
I
lifestyle
got you good. I like
until that
that.
3 months.
That's great.
3 weeks, 3 months.
Yeah.
Yep, the threes.
Yes. Yeah. All right,
So
Stacia, the thing with the pants was kind of funny. That must have been entertaining.
I like, so who attended last night? We were all, Phoenix, you weren't with us last
I
night, but
missed it. Yeah.
Lawana taught her class. So she's been talking about creating your own vibrations. And she talked about accountability and vibrations. And so I think there's no, like, there's a reason why everything comes together, right? And I think the
Right.
placebo effect also is in alignment with accountability, especially when we're moving towards making those new habits and
Right.
cutting out the word try. And I'm doing it, and I am finding my relationship with being patient, and I'm working on those, or I am patient and I'm learning that instead of the wording of that negates it, so that it doesn't happen. And I don't know, I just see there's a lot of similarities, a lot of things that are coming together between all of the classes. So
Yeah, that's awesome. I love how synergies work.
Me too. And sorry, I'm not going to turn on my video because I'm not looking my best. I worked a long day today.
All good.
But
Always look your best to me, but that's okay.
Thank you. I wanted to say, first of all, I love it. I love you.
Thank you.
And then how you kind of feel like you're at a plateau right now. Like reaching higher is harder. And it's similar to when you are losing weight, like whatever you're doing is working, and then all of a sudden you hit a plateau and you're like, I can't lose anymore. Why not?
Yeah.
And then you kind of
Kind
have
of
to
like that.
change. You
Yep.
kind of change your approach, or
You
change
change things
just
up, you
a
read
little
new
tweak
things.
here and there. And so it's probably just a little tweak or another bit of shadow work. And it's with spirituality, with ascending, I don't think it's ever ending.
Oh, I don't think it's ever ending either. And I know this is a necessary part of my growth, but we're talking like huge dynamic relationship paradigm shifting kind of things. Which is hard, as I said, especially when things are good. But the only not good is actually I think I'll go into it. I posted it during my appreciation vacation post that I put. But when you first get with someone, the good is novel and sticks out. Oh my God, they send you a good morning text. How amazing, because your old relationship didn't do that. And the bad things like, oh, he snores. You just go, oh, how cute. He snores like, a chainsaw, but it's adorable because you're in love, right? After years of literally being inseparable, we are reaching the point where the good is normal. And so it's not novel anymore. And the little things that are irritating that used to be cute are becoming difficult for us to deal with. So we're going to he's going away for a month in June to the Earthship Academy. And I know we need it so we can appreciate each other again. Because part of what has made that so profound for me is and I'm pretty sure he agreed when I said it. Actually, he did, at least the one time. I'm not sure otherwise. Were we to meet each other now? We at the development we have now, if you were to go to an expo and see one of my presentations and we started talking, we would fall madly in love with each other. His intellect and spirituality and everything else was like crack to me. It was the most beautiful thing. And now it feels like it's weaponized half the time, telling me where I'm wrong. Some of that, again, is my perception of what's coming in, and I am aware and I'm working towards my part in that. But the same thing works that I'm a very sexual person. Well, it feels weaponized to him that I'm always wanting and always trying. And so that's something that we're working at breaking. But these were things we loved about each other when we got together.
Yeah.
But when it's every day, constantly, without the break, I see it like when you're exercising a muscle and it's exhausted. But if you just stop for 5 minutes, you could go again for a whole nother set, but you just need to give it a rest. And that's where we're
Yeah.
at now.
So it also feels like another plateau for you,
it
you
is.
know?
This is, yeah.
So a month
Health
apart.
wise, I'm good, except for the fact that I need to dedicate more time back into the self care. It's emotional. I am very raw and very, well, raw.
Mhm.
Because when I was an unhealed empath, I would have completely shut up, clammed up, put the walls around me. And instead, I am trying to experience, work through all the things, I guide everybody else to do. I have to take my own medicine. So
Yeah, it's beautiful and very respectable, I feel.
Ian.
Like your last class, your vulnerability is your
Yeah.
superpower or whatever it was.
It is. It is. That's also why, even though, believe me, I was like, I couldn't stop crying. And I was like, how am I going to do this class if I'm a
Yeah.
mess in tears the whole time? But one, I didn't want to not show up for you guys. But two, I knew I'd bring my own answers like I always do when I
Yeah.
I end up teaching myself when I listen back to it later.
Totally.
But thank you guys for holding space and letting me vent as well.
Yeah. And also if you feel like you're perfect or whatever, you come across like I'm just perfect, you follow me, then it doesn't come
Right.
off as authentic
Real,
and
right.
people, it repels people,
It does.
So
It does.
I'm
Because there
sorry
is
that
no
you're going
perfect.
through a hard
So
time. I'm so sorry that you're going through hard time, but
I know it's an important
thank
part
you
of
for
growth. Yeah.
being real and
Well, thank
honest and
you.
raw.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Anyone else? I haven't said that yet this week. Anyone else?
Did you happen to read the chats?
I did actually. I had put the crying face on it, but you didn't cause it. I do want you to know that.
Thank you.
I believe what is possible is that you preemptively felt it.
I still
Like-
kind of struggle with self-harm kind of to this day. And so
I have loved ones who do as well. And in fact, I'm very proud of them. I just got a message that they are 10 months self-harm free, which is huge.
wow.
Yeah, it's since they were 9 and they're now 15, and they now have been clean on it for 10 months. So I'm very, very proud of them. But I get with the sick part. My parents were very much the same way. I didn't do the stuff to make myself sick, but I faked it like a champ. I was great at running the thermometer under the water to get it just high enough temperature that I wouldn't have to go to school. And honestly, I was just happy for attention from my parents. Honestly, that was relatively positive. There was a lot of negativity in my house growing up, a lot of support, but mixed in with the negativity, which one stands out? And that is something I think we all go through. Is the thing was a teacher that wrote the 9 times table on the board and had 2 times 9 is 16. Everything else was right. And the class started laughing. And he said, I got 11 questions right. The only one you noticed was the one I got wrong. And we all do that. We see the one thing that sticks out because we expect the good stuff, instead of looking at it holistically as an entire being. And the bad stuff, it doesn't mean you don't work on it, but it's just like our shadows. Our shadows are part of us. We heal them, but they don't go away. They still were part of what shaped and healed us, made us. But then by healing from that, we integrate that shadow. It's the same thing with the other people that we interact with. They have the good that is, say, 90%. But that 10% is going to seem like 100%. And I'm very guilty of this, of saying things like all the time, always, you're always. It's not always. And so I'm calling myself out on this, that it is sometimes, but it feels like always when it's the parts that chafe you. But as I said, you didn't cause that for yourself, but what you probably did is, even at an early age, you intuitively knew that it would be in your future. That's what I think.
Also, I feel like you saying the always thing, I feel like I'm always saying that my kids are always fighting or
Right.
are always yelling at me. And so I'm like trying to change that narrative and only think of the positives and not always look at the negatives.
Yes. It doesn't mean that you ignore negatives and you don't address them and how you might want to change them. But if it's something you can't change or can't currently change, it really doesn't make any sense to get upset, wasting the energy to worry about it then. Wait until, the opportunity comes where you can work on it or can change it. But changing the narrative is always one of the strongest things you can do. As I said, I realize one of the best things I can do is stop reacting. And again, it's my ego problem, because my ego doesn't come across as I am great and wonderful, worship me, which is what we think of as ego. My ego comes across as like, this is so unfair and people are being unfair to me and I'm a victim. That's my ego's sneaky mechanism that I'm working on.
I feel like we relate a lot. Thank you, Trina.
Oh, my pleasure. My pleasure. Are we good? Maybe.
I think so.
Yeah,
Like,
I think
I love hearing about other people's healing journey, and we're all different, we're all at different levels, and it's hard to not compare ourselves to each other,
Yeah.
but we all have a different lens we're looking through from all of our
Yes.
experiences. And just remember that just because she healed herself from all those
Right.
horrible things, and maybe you haven't yet,
Right.
you're not
Yeah.
bad, you're not wrong,
Right.
and you're healing at your own pace, and that's okay.
It is. No, it's wonderful. Comparison, by the way, I do want to throw out, is the root of so many problems. I have realized that, take somebody who, on a scale of 1 to 10 would be a 5, right? But they live in a place where everybody's 4s and 5s. They're thrilled with life. They go to a place where they realize they're considered a 5 and everybody else is 8s and 10s. They're miserable only because they're comparing themselves to the people around them. They could be just as happy in either situation if they weren't comparing. So comparison really is where we self-flagellate a lot.
Yep. And it's so nice to have people to look up to and try to grow towards. So thank you all for being that for me.
Oh, thank you.
My friend told me something that made me really happy. She said, even when you have a bad day with your kids, the next day is always a refresh do-over day, and you can do better the next day.
Yeah, that's wonderful. And honestly, that applies with everything, not just your kids. Tomorrow is always a new day. Maybe.
I think I was just waiting for Phoenix to jump back in. Do you want to close up, Phoenix?
I was like, I should let Linda do it.
No, you're
Okay,
on a roll. It's
we'll
all
close
yours.
it up. Thank you so much for joining us, and Trina, for all of your wonderful love and support for all of us. We really, really appreciate you. And when is your next class?
I think not till April 25th, because I'm actually going in for dental surgery on
Okay.
Monday. So
Yeah, I thought that it was going to
Yeah.
be a minute. So
Yeah.
we will just be longing for your return and
Well, thank you.
praying for your healing. Okay.
Thank you. Thank you. All right.
And
Thank you, everybody.
so much.
Thanks,
Love you.
Trina.
Love you
Bye.
too. Now if
Love
I can
you.
figure out
Good
how to
luck with
close this from
everything.
Mac.
And
There you go.
we'll
Thank
be
you.
Keep
watching
us
your story.
posted. We want to
I
hear.
will.
Okay.
I will. I'll post stuff on Facebook, I'm sure, when I feel up to it. As I said,
Yes.
it's been a rough few days
Yeah.
after a rough few weeks after, yeah. All right. Talk to you all later.
Okay.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Like, is she
Bye-bye.